Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Morning Market Movers, where we do live analysis for day trading and take a look at hot spots in the markets. My name is Todd Rich. I'm with Nadex. With me from Keep Trading Simple is Brian Caprice. Today is Friday, December 3rd. So let's take a look. Actually, before we take a look at what's going on to the markets, I do need to share this disclaimer that trading involves risk and may not be appropriate for everyone. That any trading decisions you make are solely your responsibility and at your own risk. And this is an educational session. Please do not construe anything Brian or I say as a buy or sell recommendation. We are doing this for your education purposes. So what are we looking at today? And we've had some interesting employment numbers out of both Canada and the US. First, we'll just take a quick peek here at Canada. As you can see, they added over 100,000 jobs beyond their forecast. I mean, they're really that's just a blowout number. While their unemployment rate still sits at around 6%, they did add a lot of folks to the payrolls. Now, a little different story here in the U.S. We were expecting a 500,000 people getting added. We only added 200,000. We missed, uh, and that's a pretty big miss. Now, what's interesting is our unemployment rate actually dropped a bit. So that's a bit of a surprise too. And as that's dropped, what's even more interesting is the earnings, the average hourly earnings, year over year and month over month, both down. So people are taking less money. It's a question mark. Now, uh, what we've really got to be taking a look at today, and Brian are going to jump into that. But we've seen some. I mean, it was immediate dollar weakness. We saw dollar weakness across the board. If I brought up a few of the other charts, uh, it's a pretty big candle. But then they retraced a chunk of that candle. We could take a look at the yen, the Swiss franc. Brian will go across. The one where it's just now starting to try to retrace is against the Canadian dollar. Because with that news, not only did we see dollar weakness, we saw Canadian dollar strength. That's a pretty big move. I mean, we blew through some binary options, short duration binary options. But if we want to take a look at some of these other ones, I mean, if I drop down to, say, uh, the dollar Swiss, I mean, it was a crazy trade um, where I mean, it blew through a whole bunch of levels. I mean, these are those opportunities: one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. It got almost got nine binary options and completely retraced. I mean, that was a crazy 15 minutes. So, um, but again, I mean, you've seen that retrace here, but against the Canadian dollar, not so much. Equity markets kind of shrugging it off, trying to open up slightly in the green. So that's the intro. Brian, I'm going to flip it over to you and let's take a look
Mhm.
at what's going on here because there's a lot to digest from both the Canadian and the US unemployment numbers.
Yeah, and it's interesting. A lot of the messaging from basically the United States as well as other countries now is becoming very similar. The transitory thing was, very popular for a long time, and now that's officially retired. We talked about labor shortages and being the problem, and yesterday we heard about labor force participation, which I think is important to note. Remember, the way that the unemployment rate is designed, it's if you've been out of the workforce for a year, you're no longer included in the number. There's a lot of people that have not come back, and that's been something that we've heard this week is the labor force coming back to work, and that's the biggest problem right now. So seeing the 4.2 on 4.5, and even the 6.6, great numbers, but we know that there's an underlying kind of piece to that one, so it kind of gets washed out. The job hiring, though, there's no tweaking that number. So there was a better than supply increase last time. 210 is quite a low number, especially with the ADP number we saw on Wednesday. So, I mean, I'm sure that, there was already revision before. There's probably going to be more revision. But the hourly earnings is the crazy part. They're finally acknowledging inflation is here, but yet now they're paying people less month over month. So, kind of weird. Now, we did talk about Canada, and Canada was kind of and hold on, before I jump over to Canada real quick, let me just point out, too, the reason why I'm bringing up labor force or the labor force participation is because we mentioned earlier today that Saunders was also speaking in the UK, and his was the same thing. Inflation has drifted up. I have some concern, but right here when he talks about Omicron could affect both demand and the composition of demand, worsen UK potential growth through lower workforce participation. So again, you're kind of seeing the UK follow suit. It's like, oh yeah, you
Mm,
guys have that too, us too. Yeah, me
yeah.
too, me too. So It is interesting. And again, when we get into situations like that, again, that's where the unemployment rate is not as important of a number. It really goes back to the amount of jobs hiring. But everybody's talking about inflation. So people making less money, when we know that we have record high inflation, they're finally like, yep, it's here. It's not leaving. Very interesting story is kind of unfolding from this one. So I'm very curious to see what ISM does today, because a lot of people are going to look at this and not really know how to interpret it. They're like, oh my God, that's so bad. But oh my God, that's so good. Not understanding the true politics of it. So I think ISM services today could be an interesting number to really give some true direction. Again, the big money out there knows how to interpret it. This is not necessarily the best things right now, but when you're looking across and looking at something like the VIX right now, where's the VIX? You can see the VIX is definitely on its way, kind of creeping lower. Now my VIX is delayed a little bit, so we'll see what it does. But number being out, that typically removes some of the volatility. So it could technically spike a little bit, although I have caught up. It's after the news release, so the further the VIX drifts down, the more potential all the indices have to go up today. Now, the dollar CAD in particular was a trade that we've talked about for a few days, and the dollar CAD is a story of a few things. So Canada had great numbers. If you were attended yesterday, I mentioned that I expected dollar CAD to have good numbers this week. I expected dollar CAD to push down for a couple of reasons. One, I thought their unemployment change was going to be good this week. Two, I think everybody expected very, very big numbers out of the U.S. And I mentioned yesterday, even if it came in as expected, after seeing the GDP numbers on Wednesday, I felt like the market, if it came in just as expected, I felt like everybody would assume that it was going to be higher than that. Well, it didn't even do that. It came in red, about half as much. So again, there was your negativity on that one to give us that dollar weakness, as well as, remember, the dollar CAD is a story of oil as well. And looking at it just briefly right now, oil's up 1.75% today. So you have oil strengthening the CAD. You have great CAD numbers. We have a level that we've talked about all week, right? The aggressive one that acted as a buffer area, right? It based in there and based in there and based in there and based there, based in there. But we talked about that 128.33 was that conservative number yesterday, and again tested a few times, but it's barely been able to breach. Well, this morning at about 5:30 a.m., the Europeans said, "Okay, time to go. Let's go." And you can see the big push of that really came from that non-farm payroll number. But there's 1 to 3. I mean, that was a nice little runner, and it's something that it was slow moving, 55 pips down. Again, guys, this is something you guys could have traded in the overnight. A very easy position. We've known it's been there for a while, and it coincided with news, and it had already started to move back, and then news was that final catalyst to drive the nail in the coffin. So I would say today, this one will probably continue to run. It's a little bit late to get into it right now. Most of the move has already been accounted for, and now we're seeing the profit taking coming in. But it's definitely something today we can continue to see this pushing lower, as well as it is Friday. You got to start setting up your trades for Sunday night for next week. So, I mean, looking to the left, we can see we really don't have a lot stopping this one until we get down to really down here to 127.19. So we got some room to run. And again, it could provide some interesting, not only trades for today, but starting off next week. And remember, Sunday is a great day to put on those knockouts because they last for the entire week. So, and again, there's weekly call spreads, but there's some good opportunity with the knockouts in here. So to catch larger trends.
Yeah. All right. So what else do we want to take? I mean, I don't know if there's anything else we want to be looking at. No, obviously the dollar CAD, and I don't know if
all the dollar pairs in the same kind of spike. I mean, here's the pound dollar. And again, it is the weekend. So make sure that you guys are looking for your trades for next week. Literally go to LFX, go to Forex Factory, go down to next week. Here is Saunders speaking today. Again, you don't have to know who Saunders is, but he talked about inflation. There was 2 small levels here, and then you can see not only did Saunders start really driving it higher, and yesterday we talked about with price coming down, look for the pound to go long, look for pound strength. And we did. We got some pound strength and dollar weakness. And again, this is quite a bit, this is 55 pip runner as well. So
yeah.
Every time one of these large people speak, I mean, you can do it this way to where we can go to Monday. And again, do it based off here Sunday right now. Look, I can see where all the big releases are next week. And it's very, very easy to kind of go in here and plan what your next week is going to look like. So, that's all we did with this one. And again, it was an easy kind of trade to the top side for the dollar, pound dollar, dollar CAD, dollar yen is in a weird position. We talked about the euro pound as well. We talked about this one coming up and tagging one of those levels, and it did. It came up just above at 5:30 this morning and rolled all the way back down again. So we talked about when Saunders was speaking, basically pound strength coming into the market. Now again, can't do much with it now; it's already moved. But guys, they telegraph when they're out there. So again, grab some of these easy opportunities.
All right. As a part,
watch energies.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know.
But
I was gonna say for parting shots. I mean, because I know
mhm.
oil's just been doing its creep higher. There's not much going on in energy or metals.
Yeah,
Here's what's strange. I mean, we did. I mean, those were not pretty unemployment, jobless claims numbers. Sorry.
yep.
Um, Equities seem to be shaking it off at the moment. I don't know if we want to take a
Mhm.
quick peek at any of the um,
Yeah. They're all
at
kind of in the
any of the
same.
equity charts, just like maybe the Nasdaq and the Dow, just to kind of take a peek. Are there any interesting levels, or the S&P?
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, right now they're all about the same range. The Dow is up 0.35%, and that's the lowest. The ES and NQ are both up 0.45 to zero point 0.5, so they're kind of right in that middle area. And then the Russell 0.66. So I would say right now, with everything pushing higher, the news was not really good. But like I said, the people that are going to be getting into the market are going to see that unemployment rate. And at one point in time, the unemployment rate was very important because we had a very high participation rate. But because of COVID, we don't have the same participation rate we had before. So it's not as accurate right now. But people will see that and say, that's a huge jump. But it's like, yeah, but our biggest problem right now is inflation and you're getting paid less. So
right.
that's not
So,
a good sign. And you
so
hired back one third of the people we thought. So, you know, where are the jobs? Because again, remember, December is always a time where you get a lot of seasonal workers coming in,
right.
and then they all get dumped in January. So, seeing that we're all only 200,000, it's kind of like, wow, the ADP number looked great. The non-farm number was, not good. So I would say look for these to continue to drive up, but I mean, even on a smaller time frame. The problem is when we look to left in every single one of these charts, there's not a whole lot of levels over here with a lot of momentum.
Nothing.
So I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean that's the problem is we had such a big crash down. There's not a whole lot of selling areas over here. But I would say overall, on a purely fundamental basis, it should be more of a negative day. But again, it's December, it's low volume. Remember, the people that would normally take this market and crash it are not in the market right now. So it's more of a retail trader kind of focus right now. The numbers look great for a retail trader. I would say that, again, we rise higher, then yeah, we can see these starting to roll over a little bit. If they start to turn negative at all, and again, if the VIX starts to creep up at all, or we start to hear any negativity or see anything, the YM is going to be the one that takes short, is the weakest right now. It is kind of approaching a level up top. I was going to say if there's if we drive up to this level at 10:30,
Yeah, you'll see
where are
some
we at here?
resistance. Yeah, look for that reversal.
Yeah, I would say probably right around this 34,934 on your charts. Look to see this big boom. The candle formation at the top. It's a one candle base before it dropped down again. Great level. Love the shape of that candle. Love the reaction from it. And again, that was 11:15 the other day, so it was in trading hours. I would say if we continue to drive up a little bit, 10:30 today, or I guess it's even 10 o'clock today, right? Yeah, 10 o'clock today. That's where we could have a reversal. We have that morning burst where all the retail traders are like, yeah, this is awesome. And then ISM
And then
comes
roll
in,
over.
and then we kind of continue to push back down for the day.
And
Um,
and
and again,
I think a lot of it is going to be how, I mean, there's just still so much uncertainty. I know people keep on
mhm.
talking about Omicron,
Yeah, it's in
and
New York now, right? There's like 5 or 6 cases
it's
in New
here.
York, but don't worry, is what they're saying.
Yeah. What's interesting to me is, yeah, we got this new variant. It's different. We're not sure how
Mhm,
and there's just a lot of unknowns. But what I haven't seen, because it is, they're saying it's came out of South Africa, is we're
mhm.
not seeing any increase in hospitalizations or mortality, from the Omicron. So it it's different, and we don't know what it's going to do, but and so they want to clamp down and try to prevent its spread, but we're not seeing, at least not yet, any of the serious or critical side effects from it.
Yeah,
What I mean, the real
we haven't heard
concern.
from it yet. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. We haven't heard from it yet. And again, it could be just like Lambda. Remember, Lambda was a South American variant that came out. It was like, oh, Lambda's here. It's in Texas, right? The big joke was that it went to Texas first.
Right.
Um, yeah, Omicron, and they're scared because it is traveling around. But at the same time, and I just had one of our lacrosse families lose a grandfather the other day. His nursing home got it, and they said it spread like not Omicron, but got
But
COVID,
it would be
spread through,
COVID, right? It
and he
could still be
passed.
Delta.
Just COVID in
I mean,
general.
Delta
Mhm.
is what we're fighting.
Yeah,
We're fighting
we don't even know.
Delta.
Yeah, they don't tell you what variant it is, but yeah, his nursing home got it and he passed away, fully vaxxed and boosted. So, um,
Yeah.
it's still out there. So we don't really know a lot. And like I said, it was the big deal in the very beginning about Omicron. It could turn out just like Lambda, and it could just completely disappear and be a no issue. And if that's the case, if we hear nothing about it, think about what Omicron did to the markets, guys.
It
What
would
was
just
the biggest thing that Omicron did was grab oil from $80 and drive it all the way down. And now what is oil doing? And we're hearing less and less. And guess what?
It's
OPEC
creeping
Plus
higher.
said we're not releasing anymore. So if it turns out that Omicron is nothing, we're like, yeah, it was a false alarm, no problem.
Boom.
They're not increasing volume at all. They said it. We're not increasing for January. Don't care what happens.
They're holding steady
so
where they are. Right.
That ship has sailed. So if it comes out that it is not an issue, what do you think oil could be doing in the second half to January timeframe of December?
I mean, again, we don't know what we don't know. It's just kind of interesting. I get the knee-jerk reaction. I mean, it's a new variant. It's different. We're not sure how the vaccines are going to work against it. But if we're not going to see if it's just going to be mild symptoms and someone's actually dropping, if it's nothing but mild symptoms, then the reaction to it. And I get it because we don't know, and that's always going to uncertainty is going to drive that fear. It always does. But as we get our head around more data around it, even if it spreads and it goes rampant, but it doesn't do, and there's no critical side effects that we saw with, say, Delta, where then I think the markets.
Well, remember too, there's variants. Remember too, there's a variant and there's a strain. So there are two separate things as well. So yes, we have a new variant, but there's going to be different strains of it, and I think it's the strains that they worry about in the future. And like I said, it could fizzle out to be absolutely nothing, as other ones have done in the past. It could turn out that the Omicron is the new Delta, but one of the strains is because remember, when we get flu shots, we get it for strains, right? And a lot of vaccinations are done off of a strain, not the actual, the piece of it.
It'll be interesting as more of that comes in as we know more. But in the meantime, uncertainty is uncertainty, and so you're going to see these volatile moments in the markets. All right. With that, any questions for Nadex? Please email us customerservice@nadex.com. Any questions for Brian? You can email him at support@keeptradingsimple.com. We are available. We're here to help. Today, it really was all about the employment figures, both in Canada and the U.S. And in the markets, the volatility today, the opportunities this morning, were in the FX market. So remember, it's not always just the equities or the commodities. We also have those FX markets where there are chances. We even have those event contracts. I tell you that, in fact, if I brought that up real quickly, I'm going to do this before we jump over. Although it expired. And we're adding more event contracts. It's going to get kind of fun. The unemployment rate and the non-farm payrolls already expired. But I mean, those non-farm payroll. These non-farm payroll numbers would have been interesting because we missed by so much. By the way, if you haven't noticed yet, there are a couple more. We got to rename these because they're not particularly clear. But I know Brian and I talk quite a bit about crude oil inventories and nat gas inventories. We do have binary event contracts on these where you can play these in the markets that they're going to move, but you can also, for fun, take a look at. Do you think the number is going to come in above or below different levels? So stay tuned. I think there's going to be a lot more in that space as well. With that, I want to thank everyone for joining us. I want everyone to have a great weekend. I know we're heading closer and closer to the holiday season. Brian and I will catch you again Monday morning. Good luck in the markets, everyone.